Evening. We want to thank you for joining our Evesham Township Shares webinar. I am Stacy Webb. I am Deputy Director of Community Development. We have a wonderful program scheduled for you tonight. I'm going to start sharing my screen so you can see how we're going to manage this program. Oops. Sorry. Okay. This is part 4 of our 2021 initiative to share information with Evesham Township. This is our webinar series that we will continue throughout the rest of this year. By way of an agenda, we are going to have a welcome, a few words from our wonderful Mayor Jacqueline Vesey of Evesham Township. We're so excited to have her say a few words for us. I'm going to come back and go over a few guidelines regarding this information session or this webinar. And I'm going to talk about the purpose of the webinar and our mission statement. And then I have the wonderful opportunity to introduce our speakers. We have 3 wonderful speakers today that are going to provide information for our business owners regarding what is going to help them now and in the future. I'll come back, I'll talk about some next steps and ensure that you have a way to contact us all. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Vesey.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I'm so glad to be here with you. As Stacy said, this is our 4th webinar that we've done since the new year started, and we've been sharing a lot of information for businesses and business owners on how they can have more resources here in our community as well as along throughout the state and federal government. I really want to thank our speakers who are here tonight. They have great information that they're going to be sharing with us, and we appreciate the time that you're giving to our community to share that information. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say. So thanks everyone for joining us, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mayor Vesey. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. As I mentioned, I was going to talk about the guidelines for the webinar. This is an informative presentation. It will be recorded, and a copy of this document, that I'm reading from now, will be available on our Evesham Township website. Questions will be or can be asked via the chat function. So if there are questions during the webinar or after the presenters are finished, you can type them in the chat function, and I will ask them at the end of the webinar. If we run out of time, I will always respond to those questions by adding them to a frequently asked questions page on this document, again, that will be posted. Each presenter will provide their contact information that will be shared before we end, so that you know you can reach out to them directly with any of your questions. If there are any questions that we can't get to, or anything that you reach out to me directly on, again, I will answer those directly and will add them to a definite frequently asked questions page, so that everyone on the webinar watching it now or in the future will be able to have the answers to those questions. The purpose of our webinar in our Evesham Township Shares series is really to consistently share information with our businesses. Our goal in 2021 is to make sure that as we know information, as we hear things that come up, that we share them with you. So it's important that we ask that you please check our social media pages. You'll see different Evesham Shares posts that will come up that will give you information about different things that are happening for our businesses that are important for them to pay attention to, loans, opportunities, and things like that. Tonight, I want you to understand or to know that these are monthly sessions. So every month we have a different webinar with different speakers. They will consistently or always provide financial and non-financial assistance, as well as guidance through these unprecedented times, both now and in the future. In addition to our speakers providing information, we will always add things to our Evesham Township website page as well as the posts. Okay, now it is my honor to introduce our three speakers. This is the first month that we actually have three speakers at the same time. We usually have two, but this month on this fourth webinar, we have Christy Howell, Jessica McCosker, and Ralph Smith. They will be speaking on three topics: supporting and developing business relationships and advancing business opportunities through the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce, business owners' responsibility versus requirements for employees and handling COVID-19, and avoiding and minimizing legal concerns for business owners handling employees and COVID-19. Our first speaker is Christy Howell. Christy is the president and CEO of the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce. She has been in this role since December 2002, and since that time, the Chamber has grown and evolved through her focus on membership, programming, annual budgeting, and staffing. Committees are now available to the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce members as a result of her vision. Under her leadership, the Chamber has added signature regional events, including the Education and Workforce Conference and South Jersey's Healthcare Forum. As an active member of the Burlington County community, Kristi serves on numerous boards herself and committees. Kristi works as a business advocate. She is committed to helping businesses in Burlington County succeed and grow. Our next speaker is Jessica McCosker. Jessica is a professional human resources manager at Workplace HCM Incorporated, which is right here in Marlton, New Jersey. She is a SHRM-CP, and for those who are not sure what that is, SHRM is the Society for Human Resource Management, of which she is a certified professional. Jessica is certified to create better workplaces for employers and employees. She has been in the HR industry now for over 5 years. She began in the talent acquisition area, and this experience helped to prepare her for the human resources manager role. Currently, she oversees the HR operations for Workplace HCM, as well as many of their clients. And finally, we have Mr. Ralph Smith III. Ralph is an attorney and shareholder with Capehart Scatchard, which is located in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, servicing New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. He is the co-chair of employment and labor practice with the firm. Ralph's focus has been employment litigation and preventative employment practices, including counseling employers on the creation of employment policies. He represents both companies and individuals. Ralph also counsels healthcare clients in reviewing employment contracts. I hope that you can see by this list of what they do, we have some very qualified speakers tonight who are ready to help share some information with you. We're going to start now with Miss Christy Howell.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me today. It's my pleasure to join you. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of information about the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce, what we are and what we're not. Oops, And I think I just hit the wrong, give me 1 second here. There we go. Oh. What is a chamber? So we are a 501c3 nonprofit. Oh, I told you I'm having technical difficulties today. We're a membership organization. We have a volunteer board of directors and paid staff. And the most important thing is we are not part of the government in the United States of America. However, if you happen to go overseas, you may find a chamber of commerce that is part of the government, especially in Germany and some other areas. So because of that, we have other duties and responsibilities for foreign companies that we do for members, such as certifying the origin of goods that are made in the USA for foreign chambers. So I just added some pictures here. So not all chambers the same. There are local chambers and business associations. A lot of them focus on downtowns. They focus on events. Some focus on tourism. Some focus on what we call B2C, business to consumer. Who are we? We're in their 45th year of operation, 44 years as the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce, starting out as the Willingboro Chamber of Commerce. I'm the second CEO in the organization's history. We rely on members of volunteers who are members of the business community, and we are a business to business organization. So what does that mean? We don't do marketing directly to consumers, but yet we help you market your business to other businesses for the purpose of growing your business here in Burlington County. So I put up our mission and vision, and I'll just kind of give it to you. 5 years ago, we did a really big study on who we are and what we do here. And we are really proud that we promote, educate, and advocate the growth, prosperity, and success of our members. And our vision is to be the gateway for prosperity for our members to the region. And why are we the gateway? If you think about Trenton as the Burlington County Mason-Dixon line, the Mercer-Burlington line, you have to come through Burlington County to get through to South Jersey and do business. So we are really the gateway to many businesses to do business in South Jersey. What do? We support our members. We help them grow their business, and we help improve the economic outlook of Burlington County and the region. We connect businesses with introductions for the purpose of doing business. And I was mentioning before we got on tonight, I was just doing that tonight. I was making some electronic introductions to introduce some new programs that we have. We promote and highlight businesses through our social media, through our newsletters. We provide education to help you grow your business through programs and articles. We create networking opportunities and for business development. And our big thing is connecting businesses for growth. Our how, we do it through partnerships, programs, and most importantly, access to elected officials and government programs and much more. Today, we hosted a webinar with some other chambers to help people through the new NJEDA loan program. Because it seems like every iteration, there's some new stuff that you need to know. So our partnerships, you can see here, we've got several of them. We partner with many other chambers and other like-minded business associations in our community to help give our members access to those members and to those relationships. You know, we're proud, we were talking a little bit earlier that we're doing some in-person events coming up. We've got one coming up in June, and that will be in conjunction with the Camden and Gloucester Chambers of Commerce to help our members get out and meet some new people, especially after being cooped up for so long. We provide access and introductions. We help folks with federal and state government registrations. Why is that particularly important in Burlington County? Because we have the Joint Base, we have the Naval Yard, we have other federal institutions right in our backyard here. And it's important for many of our businesses to have their numbers and to have proper registrations so that they can do business with the federal government. And most importantly, working with Joint Base McGuire-Dix-Lakehurst, who is our largest employer in Burlington County and our second largest employer in the state, located in the northern section of our community. It's important. There's a lot of folks that do business with them, from hotels to folks that make nuts and bolts to folks that pave roads and much, much more out there. We help you build relationships through networking events, through educational programs, and by bringing in high-level speakers, because we know that it's the speakers that draw people to the room. We advocate for you. These are some photos of some of our elected officials. And we advocate. We don't lobby, but we do advocate. We meet with our elected officials. We tell them what's important to the business community. In my 19 years here at the Chamber, I've never advocated so much as I have during COVID for things that are important to the business community. But most importantly, they listen. Last year, we held over 15 programs for our members to talk with our elected officials to tell them what was going on in their business and how our elected officials can help. And that was everywhere from local municipal elected officials to county, to state, to our federal officials, including Congressman Andy Kim. We provide opportunities to connect. We have many free events. We have many free roundtables to help you educate you on the latest and greatest trends in business and things you need to know, just like today's roundtable on applying for money from the state. You can join a committee, you can sponsor events and advertise, and of course you can volunteer. We have great opportunities for members to help volunteer to plan programs. We have a diversity and inclusion forum coming up this year, our annual awards, golf, our young professionals put on a mini golf event, our healthcare forum, and of course our ambassador club that helps new businesses get acquainted in our community. We have specialty groups. We're very proud of these specialty groups for education. We provide education as people need it, how they need it, and where they need it on many different levels. And we do that through our specialty groups that you can see here. We invite you to grow with us in a variety of different programs. If you see some of these folks, this was Christmas in July. We try to have fun as we connect and get to know each other. Our young professionals group is extremely important to us. It's now called the Emerging Leaders Network. It's extremely important that we recognize those leaders in our community and we help cultivate them because they are the future of our business community in Burlington County. And we have fun doing it as well. Our Voice of Business Awards is our awards and honors program. We honor businesses throughout our community, elected leaders, and so much more to provide them the recognition that we feel they need as they give back to our community. We invite you to succeed with us. Where else can you meet CEOs from, I have to count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different hospitals and healthcare systems in South Jersey? You can do that here. If you're looking to make a connection, you can do that with us through our healthcare forum every year. These are our partnerships at work. Again, partnerships with these other organizations help bring 300 to 400 people into a room or into a Zoom to help expand your network. We bring in high profile speakers. You can see our panel there of our healthcare CEOs and of course Freeholder Commissioner Director Felicia Hobson, who kicked off our workforce conference. We know it's important to bring you access to these great speakers to help you grow your business. That panel there was a folks from Wawa and Radwell and a bunch of different really important great businesses, CVS, having conversations about how they do business and how you can apply that to your small business. Again, our educational programs, from our seminars for young professionals to economic impact events to legislative programs. Like tomorrow, we're hosting Congressman Andy Kim for a public policy roundtable. And trust me when I say you get the opportunity to really talk to our elected officials, that it's not just talking heads. You actually get to ask them questions. Commanders luncheons to get to know the leadership of the Joint Base and how you can do business with them. Again, an integral part for so many businesses in our community. Our Women's Business Network, which is a strong and vital network of women working together to further their businesses in Burlington County. Lunch and learns and our nonprofit workshops. See here. I believe that last picture, I think Mayor Vesey was on that panel. That was our last in-person event for our Women in Business group. It was our last legislative breakfast. So we invite you to succeed with us. We have many affinity programs which offer members deep discounts and access to programs and services that they may not otherwise have access to. We offer educational discounts. Again, most of these are only offered to larger companies, 250, 500 more employees. If you're a company you can have 2 employees, you can access these great tuition discounts with our colleges. You have a small store, you're work from home. We have conference room rentals right at our office in Mount Laurel, a conference and training center, Zoom conferencing. I like to say that we were using Zoom before it was cool, and we've had a Zoom conference center since 2019 there in our office, and that is rentable. Our website features online advertising. It provides members in the news so you can learn what businesses are doing in the community. You can search for businesses through our directory, post jobs, and most importantly, access member-to-member discounts. We invite you to connect with us through our social media. And you can join today, subscribe to email, visit an event, just by simply reaching out to me. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm pleased to be invited to participate in this Evesham Shares event, and feel free to put any questions in the chat room or give me an email. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kristi. That was a lot of information, but great and very useful. Thank you. I know that I've, been on some calls with Kristi, multiple calls. The Burlington County Chamber of Commerce is super duper busy, and they are always doing multiple programs and initiatives, just as Kristi said, to help our businesses. So I'm so thankful for her time this evening. Now I am happy to introduce Jessica McCosker and Ralph Smith.
Thank you so much, Stacy. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to speak with all of you guys today. Today, we are going to be talking about the fact that vaccines are here and what do you need to do now. So Ralph and I are going to work together over the next little piece of time to really go over some questions and some piece of advice on really what you should be doing to get you moving in the right direction. We know this is a big struggle for everyone out there, so we want to try and see if we can help you navigate these trenches that we're in. We will be going over some very brief overviews of the vaccine topics today. We do so just because every company is going to be different when it comes down to the finite details. So we're only going to be able to give you a nice big overview. And if you really need to, dig deep and get into those super details, you can reach out to us on a more one-on-one basis so we can really dive deeper into your specific situation. So we want to start with some of the most frequently asked questions that we hear. First one being, can I require my employees to be vaccinated? Then those questions tend to stroll into, can I require my employees to show proof of vaccination for return to work? Can I change my workplace safety policies if all employees are vaccinated? What if my employee refuses to show proof of vaccination or to be vaccinated? And what are my requirements now for paying time for COVID and vaccine reasons? Now, working with clients in multiple industries, we've come across these questions and many more. And while these are just some of the questions we hear on a regular basis, do keep in mind, again, they are very situational and should be handled on a case-by-case basis. So we do suggest reaching out to myself, Ralph, or other consultants or attorneys to help guide you in the right direction. And Ralph, do you want to go over a little bit more of the legal aspect behind some of these questions?
Yeah, I think this is one of those questions that I am getting at least once or twice a week. The issue of, can I as an employer require my employees to get vaccinated? And it's a novel issue. It's an open-ended issue, somewhat of a gray area. And it's a gray area because unlike other vaccines where courts and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and OSHA have authorized employers to require vaccinations, this vaccine is only authorized for emergency use. And under the federal Food and Drug Law, if someone is to receive an emergency use vaccination, that person has to voluntarily consent to get the vaccination. So if someone is forcing you to get a vaccination, that is contrary to that requirement. And frankly, that is why most employers today are, instead of mandating vaccinations, urging their employees in many different ways to get a vaccination, maybe providing them with extra time off or a bonus payment of some kind. That's where most employers are going. Although just a few weeks ago, the New Jersey Public Health Department said vaccinations are absolutely appropriate to be mandated. So it is certainly a trap for the unwary. It is a legal morass. And if you are, or if you know any companies out there who are thinking about mandating this, it's really important to seek legal advice before you get to that conclusion. because we are involved in a very unusual area of the law. And it seems like the last year of my practice, I have been delving into very unusual areas of the law because COVID has caused a number of issues for employers and for employment lawyers, trying to figure out how old standards apply to this, very new issue.
Definitely is such a great area. And even as a HR manager for companies, trying to figure out the best way to word everything, not just how to manage it with the laws, gets really tricky. So we do have a couple steps here that we're going to go over when you're thinking about creating that policy and when you're working with COVID-19. This is stuff that you should really be thinking about and really diving into details on to get you going in the right direction. So the first is you do need to start with determining what your company's policy and procedure will be moving forward. So until now, we followed CDC, federal, state, and local guidelines about what to do with regards to COVID exposure and prevention. We do still need to follow those guidelines, but there are more choices for employers. So it becomes very important that when you're trying to figure out what your company policy is going to be, you need to dive down into the finite details of which guidelines are you following? Are you following them to the letter of what they state? Or are you going to be more strict than the guidelines that are out there? Typically, you don't want to be less strict because there are a lot of executive orders out there that could cause you some fines or to get in trouble if you're not following through with some of those. So there are a lot of factors that will come into play when you're trying to build that policy, but it all starts with determining what it is that's going to be best for your company and best for your employees.
And that's a great point, Jessica, about the executive orders. Before I got on this Zoom call, I was asked to respond to a client and counsel them in preparing a new work from home policy, because like many companies, they're anticipating that they're going to start bringing employees back soon, but they're also expecting that some employees are not going to want to come back. So they want to come up with some type of work from home policy, which as a labor and employment lawyer, I would certainly urge companies to have, because policies provide guidance, and that's what you want for determining, so employees know when they can work home and when they can't. Now, the issue that I raised with the client was, look, I know we want to try and start developing these types of policies, but we still have an executive order 192 from Governor Murphy that says unless it's not practicable, employers should allow employees to work from home. So as Jessica said, when you're crafting this policy, as I was trying to do for this client, we can't ignore the fact that while companies are just eager to get back in the workplace, there is an executive order out there and there's other limitations that still need to be applied and followed until they're lifted.
Absolutely. And it's definitely a struggle every day trying to figure out what that best option is. But always think, like I mentioned before, not just what is best for the company, but best for your employees at this point in time. Now, what can you do? Vaccination policies are hard to develop because of the designation of the vaccination itself. As Ralph mentioned earlier, it is an emergency vaccination. So you cannot require employees to get vaccinated, especially when we realize that if they choose not to for medical or religious reasons, we're going to start discriminating against them, and we really shouldn't. We want to be aware of the Food and Drug Act and its impact on an employer vaccination program. And as a rule of thumb, proceed with caution and analyze your risk thoroughly. When in doubt, always seek that legal advice. So there are some examples here of some policy options that might be food for thought for you. So as a healthcare facility and other close contact businesses, you may have different reasoning behind what your policy is going to be with that vaccination because of who you're dealing with on a regular basis, and the close contact that you have with a lot of clientele and customers that are coming through that door and patients. So there are some other facilities like your cafes, your restaurants, where you are even still in that face-to-face industry with all of the customers that are coming in that door, and you're serving them all of the food that they are eating. And then you have all of those trade businesses where they're going out and maybe they're just working with their crew on a regular basis and just building whatever they need to get done. In a situation like that, there's less risk for exposing the public because you are still just working with your coworkers. Whereas in restaurants and healthcare facilities, there is more of that face-to-face with the customers and patients that are out there. So you sometimes might have to think of not just a straight vaccination policy or COVID policy, but maybe some kind of a hybrid policy to put together safeguards for everyone that's going to be interacting with different people on a regular basis, and their situation and their distance between everyone is going to change on a constant basis.
You're right, Jessica, about the need to fashion policies particular to the needs of the particular business or industry. I know that I've gotten some calls from some healthcare clients of mine that are very eager to vaccinate because of the fact that they're always around the public, especially, you know, members of the public who are ill, which in some cases make those individuals more prone to more severe COVID symptoms and unfortunate consequences. So I think that's always important to keep all those issues in mind. One trend that we're seeing throughout the country, and I doubt it's going to be something that we're going to see get passed here, though I believe it was introduced, I think at the early part of this week or the latter part of last. Many states are providing COVID immunity laws, and they're passed. I know at least 4 or 5 have been passed that are designed to protect businesses from being sued by patrons who claim that they contracted COVID in your workplace. And also, well, with employees, there's always going to be some workers' comp protection there for companies. But we'll see if those types of immunity shield type laws get adopted here in New Jersey. My guess is no, because New Jersey tends to be more on the pro litigation side and pro plaintiff type rights area. So we'll see if that happens. Obviously, if that type of thing were to pass, then that dramatically changes the types of things that companies may or may not be required to do.
Absolutely. So your second step when you're building your policies for your company is, once you determine your policy, it is so important that you share it with all of your employees and why you chose to go down this route. Now, it's very important you explain why, because it gives the employees something more to hold on to, not just here's a policy that I have to follow. They get more involved with the company. They become more determined to follow that policy, and their ability to see it through with you becomes even higher. So if you just share, hey guys, this is our new policy, sign on the dotted line and follow it, and not give them any background detail as to why, their commitment is a little bit lower than if you were to really engage them in why you made the decision that you made. And you want to make sure that you're also offering those employees the chance to speak with a company representative or an HR person about their concerns one-on-one. There are going to be employees that are going to fight back on the policies that you make. And so you want to give them every chance possible to be able to speak with someone about their specific concerns, so that you're able to, if they need a reasonable accommodation made, for any medical or religious reasons, you're able to figure out what that needs to be and if the company is able to assist that employee. You also want to make sure that if an employee refuses, you want to ask that why, so you can make a better decision on what you do next. And that why becomes very important. Now, some employees may not give you a why, some may just kind of give you the cold shoulder and not want to give you any answers. But if they give you that why, it could lead down to that medical or religious reason and help you better understand what accommodations might need to be made for that employee. And this will help you refrain from any of those lawsuits related to disabilities or discrimination. And in some cases, you know, an employee may even go as far as a harassment claim.
Very important. I think that's a great piece of advice that Jessica just gave everybody about making sure that your employees know what your policies are. And the last thing you want are employees coming to you at some point and saying, wait a minute, I didn't know that that was something I had to do, or it was something that the company was requiring employees to do. I would take the sharing aspect of things one step further. Not only do you want to share it with your employees, but you want to make sure that you have proof that you actually shared it. That's why one of the things that every company does with an employee handbook, or hopefully it's what every company does with their employee handbooks, is you get an acknowledgement of receipt. And if there are changes to a handbook, you want to make sure that when those changes are communicated to the employees, you have documentation of that. I can't tell you how many depositions I have done where one of the first things I might ask somebody about is a policy in the employee handbook, and they'll be like, oh, I never got the employee handbook. And it's nice to have that acknowledgement form that basically, so I can go to them and say, well, wait a minute, you signed this, it says you read it, it says you understood it, said that if you had any questions that you could go to HR. Well, you know, you can't deny it now, can you? Some plaintiffs still will, but it makes them look bad when you have that documentation in front of them. So make sure you have the proof that your employees have actually received the the policy, whatever the policy may be. It's also important on this accommodation end of things to have dialogue, especially with the disability issue, because anytime an employer is required to accommodate an employee, the law imposes an interactive process. And that interactive process includes asking questions about why an employee doesn't want it, like in our case, doesn't want to get the vaccine. That can go a long way. If you know why an employee has concerns, maybe you can talk through those concerns and cause the employee to maybe change their view. But when it comes to the current state of the law, even with non-emergency use only vaccinations, employers have to accommodate for medical or religious reasons. That's very clear under EEOC guidelines and under current case law. So be aware of that as you're implementing this type of policy. The real issue, I think, comes in what do you do with somebody who you have to accommodate? What type of accommodation are you going to provide? I think many employers would like to say, all right, I'm just going to let you go if you're not going to honor this policy. Well, the EEOC specifically says, even if you do an analysis and you make a determination that you don't need to accommodate somebody's either religious beliefs or their disability, either because it would cause an undue hardship to the operations of your company, or that it could cause a direct threat of harm in your workplace, the EEOC strongly urges employers not to let employees go. They've suggested some form of leave of absence. I don't know if a leave of absence is any better, unless, of course, you're going to pay them while they're on a leave of absence, because employees aren't going to be happy about rejecting potentially a vaccination and then finding themselves on leave and not getting paid for it. So obviously these issues are going to be very tricky for employers. And when in doubt, it's better to pick up the phone and call a lawyer, because it's going to be a lot cheaper to do it right out of the box than having to pay somebody like me to defend your company after you get sued.
Yeah, I definitely think lawyers are going to be our biggest friends for every company and HR person out there when it comes to these policies. Because like you said, you want to do it right the first time. You want to make sure that you spend just a little bit to get that best advice that you can, so that you refrain from, tens of thousands of dollars in settlement at the other end of it if something goes wrong. And I love that you brought up the undue hardship for companies, because that's something that I know I've been dealing with for a very long time with any possible disability or trying to figure out that accommodation. Trying to make that definition of what an undue hardship is for a company can get very tricky. And there's very fine lines when trying to figure that out. And it definitely helps being able to speak with a lawyer or on that matter to try and figure out, well, what really is an undue hardship for your company? And that undue hardship for one company, that level of what that would be could be completely different for another company. Small businesses may be more limited than larger businesses in certain areas, and it might be flip-flopped for other areas. So that undue hardship is definitely something you want to keep in mind when you're trying to figure out that accommodation, but always want to make sure that you're doing as much as you can to create that accommodation before you end up trying to figure out what to do with the employee next. Now, the last thing that we do want to go over is how to pay the employees. There have been a lot of different options that the government's been providing for companies on how to pay out those COVID situations, whether it's being out for COVID, being exposed to COVID, having a family member that has COVID that you need to take care of, and even now so with the vaccinations. So employers do have the option to continue to provide that federal COVID pay to their employees. And you are still eligible to claim those COVID wages as tax credits through September 30th of this year. But it is an employer's choice. So you can choose to use those federal COVID wages, which would end up being essentially a COVID wage bank above and beyond any sick time, PTO time, or vacation time that you're already providing. Or you can use whatever you're already providing now through those PTO, sick, and vacation banks. The biggest thing that you want to keep in mind when you're trying to figure out which option that you're going to decide on is whatever you do for one, you want to do for everyone. So if you open up a COVID bank of wages through what the federal government's providing us for one employee, and you say they can have those wages before the PTO sick vacation time, that essentially should become your policy for all employees, or else you might be discriminating against another employee for whatever reason. So we always like to say, when you're trying to figure out the best way to figure out which way you're going to pay your employee, whether it's just through your regular time that you provide your employees or what's been provided through all of the acts that have been out there for COVID, just make sure you think thoroughly about it. Those tax credits do sound nice, but then you need to, realize that it could be every employee that you're going to have to do those COVID wages for at some point in time.
Consistency is extremely important in the realm of labor and employment law. The one thing I tell my clients consistently is policies need to be applied across the board to everyone, unless there's a legitimate business reason why you can't do it. And so that's rule number one, anytime you have a policy. Just as equally applicable here as Jessica said. This whole area is a fascinating one to me, because I was shocked that, given the state of the COVID pandemic at the time, these last couple laws were passed, these stimulus laws were passed after the FFCRA, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, in whole. I always talk in acronyms. The laws are just too long to remember and to say every time. When it expired on December 31st of last year, I was surprised because it wasn't renewed, because of all the things that the government did. This seemed to be the least controversial. And, it surprised me that they just didn't expand it out. My experience, I have some clients who are deciding to continue to apply to allow the leave for their employees and paying for it and taking the tax credit. And I have employer clients who have no desire to do that, because last summer for them was a nightmare, because the thing that irked them the most was having to pay an employee to be out of work, because after they came home from vacation in parts of the country that were covered by Murphy's travel ban, they would not only be paying them after they paid them their vacation time, they would have to pay them 2 more weeks of time for them to stay out. And I can tell you, a lot of employers hated that. And frankly, I have had some employers ask me, under the current system, whether they can pick and choose which reasons they'll pay for and which they won't. And I've had clients say, well, if somebody has to actually go out and quarantine because they're either sick or they've been exposed, I'll pay wages for that. But if they have to come back and they have to quarantine for a period of time because they went on vacation, I don't want the employee to benefit from doing that. I've actually told some clients in the heart of the pandemic that they could place a moratorium on vacations just to protect their workplaces, so they wouldn't have people going to parts of the country that were more infested with COVID than New Jersey. So I think it's an option for companies. If you're going to do it, you could, limit the circumstances for which you'll allow the leave and pay for it. We'll see how often it happens with employers moving forward. And one final thing I want to point out is, remember that under the New Jersey paid sick time law, the law that requires every employee to have the opportunity to accrue up to 40 hours of paid sick time, being out because they have to quarantine, or they have to care for a family member who needs to be quarantined, is likely covered by the law. So you have to let them utilize that time. And I think in most likely situations, if you have to care for a family member, you as the employee may be eligible to take New Jersey paid sick leave insurance time, or the Family Leave Insurance Act, which is not a leave entitlement, but it pays you if you're entitled to be out for a leave. So keep those sources in mind if you have employees coming to you saying, I have to quarantine and I want to get paid. I want to use certain paid time, which they legally would have a right to do. Vacation time, that's more of an option for the employer to consider.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned the NJFLI, because there's also short-term disability out there, the FMLA. So depending on the reason that the employee is out, there could be many other state and federal benefits that the employee can fall under outside of what we have listed here. So when it comes to an employee needing to be out for a long period of time, and it's funny, I actually was on a call for about an hour today, walking through an employee's options of what they can do with their specific situation. It's all going to dive down to what is the reason why they're out and which bucket does it now fall under. So there are a lot of other options out there other than this COVID wage that the federal government is providing for tax credits that employees can utilize to not just protect themselves on being out, but also get them some wages as well. So cool. That is really all that we're going to cover today on vaccines. As we mentioned in the beginning, it is a very tedious topic. It is a very one-on-one type topic. There are a lot of details, if you haven't noticed already, that can sway in either direction. So if you do have any questions, any concerns, and would like to reach out to Ralph and I to get some more guidance on any of it, please don't hesitate to do so. We are here to help guide you in the right direction and get you headed out of these trenches and into nice sailing, clear blue water.
As the nuns used to say when I went to Catholic school those many moons ago, if you have a question, pick up the phone and get advice, because doing it sooner is a lot better than finding out that you're going to get hurt later. And that's the realm that I'm in. That's the realm that Jessica's in every day. And this is a crazy new world. So, you know, be prepared, be prepared and be proactive, and never be afraid to ask questions about something you think you may know, but you know in reality you don't.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica and Ralph, for that engaging information, because I think that that is something that our employers, our businesses are concerned about now, as people are coming back to work or not coming to work and going on vacation. The summer is coming, or is here, you know, and businesses want to be protected and they want to protect their customers. So I thank you so much for pointing everyone in the right direction to seek additional help and guidance when, you know, when needed, when things come up that they just really don't know how to respond to. So I want to thank you for going through that very engaging. I say engaging because I was really listening and paying attention. So it was engaging for me. Piece of information, and the two perspectives I feel were wonderful. Jessica from Human Resources, and then Ralph from a legal perspective as an attorney, who's dealing with the lawsuits and the law cases, and, you know, and we're trying to speak to you, businesses, ahead of time before you get into trouble. Kristi, thank you so much for your time, for talking about some of the different events and ways that businesses can engage with Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce. There's so many different events and so many opportunities to network and to meet different businesses, business owners, people from healthcare. There's just so many different opportunities and options for our businesses to utilize after becoming a member of the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce. I know Kristi went through it fast because she knows it so well. It's what she lives and breathes. But it's so, I ask everyone who's listening to this webinar right now to really go and listen to and review some of the things that Kristi went through, because a lot of it is very helpful, could provide so much assistance to you at this point going forward. Kristi is available to talk to you and to really guide you through the benefits of becoming a member of the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce. So at this point, I want to say thank you. I don't see any questions in the chat right now. I know that one of the questions I received for you, Kristi, was what did you think was the main benefit of joining the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce?
It's introductions, it's access and introductions, right? You know, it's not cold calling. I was just doing that. I was just doing that before we got on this webinar, right? I was introducing people for the purpose of doing business and helping people get their foot in the door. So I would say that's number one. And a close number two is education. Just like Jessica and Ralph have been talking, we've been doing, you know, these seminars. We did 120 seminars last year, you know, to help businesses through COVID. What did you need to know as every different EO came out, and what they needed to know to keep going? And then just basically, you know, helping members figure out how to pivot. You know, how do you now pivot that your workforce is home? Because, you know, people said their workforce home and we're like, now what? You know, so we keep our finger on the pulse of all that information so we can provide the programs very quickly, and we can provide you with the education, and we can provide people like Ralph and Jessica and other people to give you the advice that you need to help your business succeed and keep you out of trouble, which is most important.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. Jessica and Ralph, the question that I had prior to this, and this was prior to the webinar, was regarding vacation time. And I think you answered that. So, you know, as employees are dealing with their vacation time, and employers are saying, I don't know if I want to, you know, approve that, or, you know, they have to make that decision. But I think what was key in what you said is making sure that their policy is across the board and it's for everyone. And if it can't be, then they need to definitely seek guidance, and they need to talk to you about what do they do in their particular situation. Businesses need to have their workers there. So I want to make sure that we leave this webinar with the note to seek guidance, please. Don't try to make the decision on your own. And as Ralph said, get yourself in some pretty hot water that would cause some legal troubles for you. I am going to share everyone's contact information at this time. Oops. I hope everyone can see. Again, I am my information is there, but Kristi's information for the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce is listed here, along with the website, which she shared with us earlier in her presentation. Jessica McCosker for Workplace HCM, her information is here. As well as Ralph R. Smith III. His information is here for Capehart Scatchard Attorneys at Law. I want to thank them for their time. I want to thank Kristi, Jessica, Ralph for your time, for your information, and for helping us share information with our businesses. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate that. For everyone listening, this presentation and the recording will be available to you on our Evesham Township website. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening or afternoon.